Larger Fellowship, a Unitarian Universalist congregation with no geographical boundary, working toward creating a global spiritual community, rooted in profound love, which cultivates wonder, imagination, and the courage to act. Adapting to the COVID-19 pandemic has been difficult for many bricks and mortar congregations. Early on in the pandemic, we were in a unique position to assist many congregations with the transition. We hosted special episodes of The View, provided advice and counseling to religious professionals, and trained congregations for live streaming worship, all while providing robust online programming for our members. From worship to covenant groups, from classes to pastoral care, and from our monthly magazine to our letter writing ministry, we have found ways to build connection and community even through the screen. We have been a model for ministry on the margins, providing services for isolated Unitarian Universalists, becoming a spiritual lifeline for our members in prison, and investing in innovative ministry. We know better than anyone how deep and meaningful connections can be formed even from a distance. Unitarian Universalists have faced many challenges in these times, and we continue to persevere and to fight for justice and equity for all people, especially during moments of crisis. We are proud to be a leader in this faith movement, and we invite you to get involved in our ministry. We strive to be a place where anyone from anywhere can find spiritual refuge anytime they need it. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of the Larger Fellowship. We are so excited to bring you an all-new episode of The View. The View is a weekly Unitarian Universalist talk show discussing important faith-based topics from an anti-racist, anti-oppressive, and multicultural perspective. Every Thursday for the past 7 years, we have welcomed guests from every corner of the world. Our guests are writers, scholars, activists, and religious thought leaders who are shaping Unitarian Universalism and society for the 21st century and beyond. I hope today's show inspires you. Hope it builds your faith. Hope it gives you perspective to see the power of Unitarian Universalism at work in your life. Enjoy the message.
Greetings and welcome to this week's edition of The VU, the Voices of Unitarian Universalism, also called The View, not to be confused with that weird TV show that I don't like. I'm Reverend DC Fortune. I'm sort of hosting-ish today. I'm leading off. This is not my comfortable place, so just bear with me. We've got a great show this week talking about sexual agency in a post-Roe world. And I'm coming to you from central Pennsylvania, the traditional home of the Susquehannock people. And it's cool and bright and beautiful, and crocuses are doing their thing. And I'm going to introduce my other hosts. I'm going to start off with Aisha. Aisha, how are things on the West Coast?
Hi, I'm Aisha Hauser, and I am on the land of the Coast Salish people, specifically the Duwamish in Seattle, Washington. I'm fine. Can't wait for today's show, seeing how far we can push the Facebook boundaries of streaming. Michael, how are you? Where are you?
Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Michael Tino, another third of the lead ministry team at the Church of the Larger Fellowship, along with Aisha and Christina Rivera. Here in Peekskill, New York, about 40 miles north of New York City, on the land of the Kitchewan and Wappinger bands of the Lenape Nation. It is a bright, beautiful, sunny day, and it might be cold. I don't know. I have lost all sort of reference. This winter of nuttiness has maybe it's chilly, but it's bright and beautiful and sunny. Like there's sunlight streaming in the window, and the flowers in front of my house are blooming. And I'm about to have daffodils, and so life is okay. My kid is in school, and I'm really excited about today's topic. Do you see?
Awesome. So before we get started on and introduce our guests, I just want to check in with the UU roundup. Have we got stuff going on this week of which I am unaware? I am preparing for a service auction event at my house, which means I'm going to have people over, and we're going to make about 100 turkey pot pies on Saturday, and that's going to involve my kitchen, which is still not finished. So so I'm not sure. Aisha, do you know what's going on? Anything?
Well, General Assembly is happening. So I think folks are,
Right.
I know the I was about to say episodes, and that's not the right word. Workshops have been approved, and so I will be part of the FOS lecture workshop for LREDA, Liberal Religious
Sweet.
Educators Association, and we just found that out. So I think whoever put in for workshops is finding out this week whether or not they were selected. So in Pittsburgh, so that's exciting.
Yeah, and I'm still in my feels about this, but just to note that Church of the Larger Fellowship's annual worship service that we present at GA was not selected for a workshop. So we're going to run it. It was not selected. So we're going to run it as a private event, and we will let you know when that private event happens. As soon as we have it scheduled. But we are still going to have a worship service at General Assembly. And I'm trying not to be like too reactive to the fact that the DEAR program team had 3 workshop slots to fill. And that's it. Like usually there were like 12, and this year there were 3.
Wow.
Coming up pretty soon, and I'm trying to find the details on my other screen here and failing at that, is the first UUA presidential roundtable event. As many folks out there might know, there is only one candidate for election for UUA president this year, the Reverend Dr. Sophia Betancourt, who is fantastic, and who at least Aisha and I have both publicly endorsed. So you know where we stand on Sophia. But Sophia is also committed to going through the process of listening and having conversations with Unitarian Universalists around the country as she campaigns for president, because she would like people to vote yes. And so there's a forum. Oh, there we go. Saturday.
There it is. I just found the information.
Saturday, March 18th is the first one in Arlington, Virginia. And I think there will be 3, and they will be streamed.
Right. So that's going to be live broadcast, and you can get the link from the Arlington UU Church website, I presume. Yes. Like it says, 1 p.m.
Oh, it does.
It does have all the things, which makes me think,
Okay.
So
you can also get it from.
Yeah, so we're clear. I love Sophia as well. I just have this horrible history of every time I endorse somebody, they lose. So she asked me for an endorsement, and I'm like, no, I won't do that to you, honey. Like, I know you're running unopposed, but no, I will not be the kiss of death for somebody I care about. So yeah.
So the registration is actually through the UUA.
For the presidential forum. Okay.
We'll put the link in the notes. I've put it in the chat for Tanner.
Okay. Also coming up, the Ministerial Fellowship Committee will be meeting in a couple of weeks, and so there are people in process who are preparing for that. And for those who are interested, the registration is now open for ministry days in advance of General Assembly. So those who are of the ministry type can register, and members of the UU Ministers Association can register for
And Loretta's been invited, so Loretta members can also join. Which
Awesome.
is very exciting, yes.
Like, that makes more sense than almost anything in the world. That's amazing. Okay.
You're so sweet, BC. It's because you like me so much. That's why.
All right. So, we have a guest who keeps appearing and disappearing because she's on Nantucket. And Nantucket, for those who are unaware, is an island off the south shore of Massachusetts. And so my dear friend Megan Andelloux, who's we've been friends for a bazillion years, and Megan's internet is a little wonky because of the island. Because there's wind on the island and the internet is getting a little weird. Tanner, can you put Megan and I together on the screen and see if we can get that working? It doesn't look like. Looks like Megan might be frozen. Or am I frozen? No, the rest of you are moving. All right. So, all right, Megan, if you can hear me, let's get you to reset. So my first time doing the lead thing here, and my guest is frozen. Awesome. Can you put us back on the Brady Bunch view so that we can?
So now we understand why you don't endorse presidential candidates.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely.
Oh, no. Listen,
What?
It's not your fault. It's windy in Nantucket. It's all good.
Right? See? Yeah. Megan's coming back. And so what happened was we had some guests lined up, and then we had a bunch of last minute things happen that got in the way of them being able to participate. And so I called my friend Megan this morning and said, hey, you want a pinch hit for some people? And Megan, of course, said yes. And here she is. She's on her phone now. She's like, ha, computer be fucked. I'm going to do this on my cell phone.
No,
that's all right. We're getting there. We're getting there. Megan, this is Megan's kitchen. I visited Megan a couple years ago in the summertime. And Tanner, can you add Megan to our little Brady Bunch view here? Okay. He's going to set up the new shot. Bear with us. So I went to visit, and it was one of those, oh, yeah, our kitchen's under construction. It should be ready. And then it took approximately a year and a half, according to like, honey, I understand that thing about kitchens, baby. Don't I know it? So while Tanner is warming up, I'm going to say a couple of things about Megan Andelloux. Not doing sexuality education full time anymore because she's living out on Nantucket and doing amazing things, helping save seals. And all right, Megan, now you're up on the screen with us. So you say something, people will hear it.
Wait, hello.
Excellent, good start. Yes, but Megan, actually, I just realized Megan was one of the first sexuality educators that I asked that question that got me started so long ago, which was, if you had a room full of ministers, what would you tell us to make us better ministers?
Ooh.
Wow.
And I asked everybody I could find that question. And do you remember what you said?
I have no idea. Well,
you remember, DC. What did Megan say?
Megan was the first one to start the trend, which said, oh my God, nobody's ever asked me that. That's awesome. Yeah. Let's start with shame.
Yeah, that's where my brain was going. But I was like, I couldn't have said that. That was so basic.
You're the first one to say that. And after that, I asked Carol Queen, and I asked Reed Mahalko, and I asked Allison Moon, and I asked everybody, Melina Williams, then Williams, now Melina Williams Haas. Everybody I asked, I said, what would you tell us? And they said, universally, wow, nobody's ever asked me that. 2, that's a great question. And 3, let's start with shame.
Yeah.
Wow. Yes.
And so, yeah. And so Megan, I've invited here to, with zero prep time, talk to us about sexuality and agency in a post-Roe world. Yeah. So, have you got any thoughts right off the top of your head to start with, or a direction you'd like us to take?
Oh, well, I guess, I had about an hour, I think, after you asked me. And so I did some like quick searches online of articles that I had read recently to make sure I brought up. And right after Trump was elected, I went out and got a tattoo. And the tattoo was of herbs that could terminate a pregnancy if somebody got pregnant and they didn't want to be pregnant. And Queen's Anne lace is prominently featured in this bouquet of pretty herbs that most people don't know what the meaning of is. But I was looking up Queen's Anne's lace and does it cause a termination? Because that's what women used to give other women long ago. And the current information is that it does not, but the phrasing of what they described Queen Anne's lace or wild carrot was beautiful. And it was that it doesn't cause a termination, and it is not a contraceptive, but it is rather a herb that is used to consent to being a parent or not. And I really loved that phrasing. Right? It's a different way. Yeah, especially with agency. Like, what are you choosing to do or not do? I think that that's something that is missing in a lot of the conversation. We talk about the big political aspects of it, and the implications of what that can mean. But I really liked getting back to the consent. So that was something I.
Okay. Awesome. So last week we talked about some of the legislation coming out of Oklahoma, and the sort of national trend that it feels like the long-term goal here is to make it illegal to be trans in public, or just illegal to be trans. It is illegal to dress or present yourself in a way that is unsatisfactory to those who would like to police such things. And policing people's bodies is sort of, and I love that we have you on, like in New England, like in the Massachusetts Bay Colony, where Tanner, like my brain would be really helped if we could be on. Thank you. The Massachusetts Bay Colony. There's this wonderful book, Sex and Punishment, and the first capital offense in the colonies in the established in North America. The first capital offense was a sexual crime. And a person, I want to say it was in Massachusetts, was hanged, I believe, for having sex with a sheep.
Yes.
And so a lot of times we as United States citizens forget that this is our foundational DNA, that we were founded truly by extremist prudes. Aisha, you have a thing to say?
T-shirt. Founded by extremist prudes is a new T-shirt, because talk about needing to get rid of shame first. So, Megan, I was raised strict Muslim and left that faith when I was 20, but I was slut shamed starting at like 10, because the whole point of my upbringing was to make sure I stayed chaste for my Muslim husband. None of that obviously happened, but it is deep and ingrained. And it was the first thing I worked on when I left the faith, is I am not going to be ashamed to live the way I want to live. But it is deep, and it took easily decades for me to truly, be free of the idea that there's an all-powerful deity that gives a shit when I have sex. Like, give me a fucking break already. But extremist
Or
prudes
that gives a
is the
shit in a
foundation.
negative sense.
Oh my God! Like, you will
I mean,
burn
if
in
there's
eternity
all-powerful deity,
for
I'm hoping it's rooting for us to have good sex.
Right.
no.
Right, and has opinions and criticisms about style points, right?
And that a woman's and the worth of a woman identified person is defined by how it interacts with a fucking penis. Like the whole idea of the virginity bullshit. We really do have to get a t-shirt. We need to break away from extremist prudes. I love that. Extremist prudes.
So when
that's like cracking me up.
when I was being raised, it was mostly an agnostic household, and my teenage rebellion was join a Pentecostal church. Yes. So
I didn't know that.
That coming.
This is fun.
yeah. And so I joined an Assembly of God, and was in it for 3 years until I was baptized. I was cast out after I was baptized because I addressed the fact that the guy in charge, the minister in charge, was physically abusing his wife and child. And they would come to church services with black eyes. So after that, people shunned me, actually, and that's why I left. But what I love about this story is later on, I was working at Planned Parenthood, and because my comfort zone, like when I want to just chill out, is to listen to the 700 Club, and because I can understand like what they're saying behind the words that.
Holy
And so
shit.
Planned Parenthood ended up hiring me to be an undercover agent in addition to my job as sex educator. And so I would go to the religious right conferences and then type up notes to give to the lawyers for Planned Parenthood in terms of the next plan of attack. Yes.
Respect.
Yeah. So that was fun. Yeah.
So, to go back to, we had a really fascinating conversation in our prep time this morning, which is DC, like stumbling into my coffee, trying to sound coherent, about access to termination services and some of the stuff that people with uteruses do in support of one another in that pursuit, in a time and a place where it's not available to them. And Megan, you had an amazing story about that. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. So because again, I was working at Planned Parenthood, and I knew this other group of women who were acupuncturists and nurses, and we were working at a sex shop also, a feminist-run sex shop in Rhode Island, and we formed a group in which we learned how to do terminations on one another. And so when someone became pregnant, we actually performed a termination on her and would do cervical checks once. I think we met like every 3 weeks, but we would document each other's cervixes, and somebody came down with chlamydia, somebody got a bacterial vaginosis, and we figured out how to treat on our own versus going to the doctor's offices, because there was a legit fear that we all had about having this access taken away. And so learning that early on, and my partner and other friends were like, seems a little kind of crazy, like a little extreme. And I was like, no, I actually don't believe that that's true. Like, and this is over 20 years ago that we were doing this. And I think that it's really important that people pass down information, because we see the information trying to be taken away. And like Iowa and Texas have bills going out right now in which you can't put information on the internet about anything relating to abortions, and suing the actual internet providers, if they allow the websites to stay up, if this bill passes, which it's expected to do, people can actually sue the internet providers in addition to the organizations being charged with criminal acts. So like the importance of sharing stories is essential for access to making choices of our bodies. So I don't know.
Yeah.
These are the things.
Wow.
Yeah.
So would somebody then like they'd be able to like sue or press charges against what, Comcast?
Yes. Yes.
As many feelings as I have about Comcast,
Yeah.
I still don't think I want that to happen.
No, because all of this is about limiting information, so people don't know what it is that actually fits right for them. It's about taking people's choices away, fundamentally.
Yeah.
Right. And it's about policing the bodies of people who are not cisgender white men.
Yeah. Yeah.
Michael, you look like you were going to say something.
No, I'm thinking about how this is just the latest in a long string of ways in which restricting access to information is being used to control people.
Right.
Right.
It does not surprise me that this is a tactic, right? This is the tactic that was used in outlawing comprehensive sexuality education in public schools. This
Right.
is, the tactic that's used in eliminating access to African American history in high schools. I mean, it's wherever you go, no matter what part of the liberation pie you're looking at, it's a tactic that fascists use to promulgate their fascism.
Yeah.
And I saw someone post the other day something like the road to fascism is paved with people saying you're overreacting. That's going to be, people are going to say, oh, you're overreacting. How could you? But like, no, now we're here.
Yeah.
Right now, Roe v. Wade has been overturned, and there are states that are.
Which they spent 50 years saying they're going to do. Who's overreacting to what they spent 50 years? The day it was passed down, they said we're going to change this. And they did. 20 years ago, you were responding to literally what they were getting elected on, what they were actively. When people show you who they are, believe them. I don't what's they're overreacting to when they're banning fucking drag shows.
Right.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Megan. You were going to say something. Yeah. I know that look.
I mean, like, part of it is that, right? And there's a legit, like, holy shit, what is going on? And you want to react to this thing, but there's 10 steps forward of where this is not the end. Like, again, I'm focusing a lot on birth control, but like the goal isn't to end abortion. The goal is to prevent all birth control devices. Like that is the ultimate goal, which gets back to the agency thing. Like, so if you choose to listen to Pentecostal news sources, they're very clear in terms of what that goal is and what they tell the public in interviews. And so it's about, but most people are so burnt out of all this shit that they don't want to subject themselves to thinking of the horror 10 steps down the road. They're just trying to put out this fire, even though it's consumed the house.
Well, and they telegraphed that even in the Supreme Court decision.
Yeah.
That overturned Roe. It's like, and this will also, overturn access to contraception and same-sex marriage and this, which were all based on the same legal rights codified in Roe. I mean, again, it's not anything that anyone is hiding necessarily.
That's yeah, and there are so many of us that are like Megan and I were talking this morning, who are just fucking bitter.
Yeah.
Because we've been yelling about this for decades. Yeah. I remember don't know if I told this story. I was in the library in Southwest Harbor, Maine, one time, and I had just read this book. I don't remember, 1973, A National Nervous Breakdown, and it was talking about how the pendulum was swinging. That was sort of the moment when the social political pendulum started to swing back to the right. It was sort of it was that backlash against liberalism that sort of began in that moment in a focused way. And I remember I said to the librarian she asked me, how'd you like the book? And I said, it really feels like we are now, and this would have been 2007 maybe or 6. I said we are in a place right now that feels a lot like 1930s Germany. And she looked at me and said, "No, it can't be that. Like that seems a little dramatic. And I remember there was this older gentleman, white hair, blue eyes, at the counter, and he sort of was watching this exchange. And he looked at me and he said with this very thick accent, he said, I was there. You were right.
Wow. Wow.
And to this day, I have goosebumps when I tell that story. And I remember the poor librarian was just like, what just happened? But there are many of us that have been shouting about this for a good long while and being told, oh, you're overreacting. You're being dramatic.
Megan, I'm wondering what you're telling people now. What does your activism look like now, and what kind of things are you working on now in terms of advocacy and organizing, if that's what you're doing?
I mean, most of the time I'm wrangling seals and cutting rope around their necks. So it's a little different. I'm in Nantucket, so whatever you think of New England, multiply that about 40 times because right and add money. But so I'm thinking about the year-rounders. There's about 14,000 of us. Everyone knows when somebody is having an affair because you know everyone's car. Like no joke. And I have really had to backpedal what my education looks like immensely. And so I'm providing a lot of opportunities for people to talk with me and practicing silence. So they do talk and ask a question, and then really working on how to phrase things so that I don't scare them off and that they actually get the help that they need. Because there's a lot of wild theories and a lack of education. Like the school system here does not offer any sex education. The amount of adult women that have talked to me about vaginal infections in which they thought all vaginal infections were the same and that you should just treat them with tea bags and soaked in lavender and tea tree oil will cure everything. Like there's a lot of education that needs to happen, and the most fundamental thing is people are terrified to open their mouths because somebody else is going to find out. Like people won't even come to my house because they found out that I was a sex educator, and they don't want people to see their car at my house because that means that they must be there for some sex education.
Salem witch trials shit right there. I was just saying that feels like Salem witch trials shit.
Right? They couldn't just be visiting to see your collection of wildlife penises?
Right.
Because that's better.
Right. So the friends that I have cultivated are usually feral women, which I love it. Like I love feral creatures. But
Right.
it's a different universe out here, and this is the best life I've ever lived because I get to wander the beach for 4 hours and not see another human, and that's great during the winter. Love it.
Mm.
But there's a lot of fear here and a lot of ignorance about that. And when I moved here, I said something which was I don't even know what statement I put out, but I think it was something like about cats. And this older woman turned and she looked at me and she goes, "Careful, it's February. And that's when everybody starts the rumors. So you should be careful about what you say." And I was like,
What?
Cats?
what did I say?
Hold up.
I don't know what I said. And then the next month, there was a massive rumor going around that I was having an affair because somebody saw me talking to a man in the hardware store, and women weren't typically in the nuts and bolts area. Like, amazing stuff here. It's amazing.
Wow.
I love my crazy island.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. It's like every really, really, really small New England town plus $1 bazillion.
Yeah.
Because it's Nantucket.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. I saw a bumper sticker when I was visiting one time, and it was on a Range Rover, and it said, "Nice Jeep, peasant."
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Freedom.
Yeah. Says Michael, who lives in, the Hudson Valley, which is not known as Appalachian, poverty stuff. Yeah. Yeah, that's crazy though. That's so.
Yeah. So people have questions, they just are terrified to ask, and that makes me feel it. I feel so much heaviness about the fear that people are holding.
Yeah.
Yeah. Leads to massive depression. Like people begin isolating themselves even more so than they normally do.
And that's
right?
the point, isn't it? Because then we won't revolt. Isn't that's the goal, is keep people afraid, and then they won't stand up for themselves or others.
Right.
Keep people isolated, afraid, and ignorant.
Yep.
Sounds like my childhood. Gee whiz. Boy, it also seems like I know that there's a UU congregation on Nantucket. And it sounds like that would be fascinating to see that sort of public access OWL program could be offered.
Oh, yeah, I didn't think about that. I mean, the UU Church here has really been doing a lot of great work they opened up the first warming shelter. And it's open, I think, 3 days a week. And it's made like a big difference on the island, and it's been very well supported. So that's been lovely.
Yeah.
But yeah, no sex education.
Yeah. Well, there's an opportunity there. That's for sure.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And that's just, and to be fair, I've been to Nantucket probably twice in my life. And both times I ran into Megan. Once I was there visiting a colleague for a week for a writing retreat, and that's and then another time I just went to see Megan and her partner and just hang out and enjoy sand and salt and observing summer people, which is a sport unto itself. It truly is.
Summer people.
Well, island communities have summer people that are.
Oh no, I know. I used to spend summers on an island in Maine, so I used to live in New England. I'm an East Coast.
Okay. Oh, where are you from?
Well, I was born in Egypt, raised in Jersey, but I spent 20 years going to an island in Maine, Islesboro. So I know the whole island. We pretended not to be summer people because we didn't want to be like them. So, but we were summer. I mean, we didn't get there till May and left. And I mean, we were summer people, but pretended not to be.
Well, and I live 15 miles away from the people who summer on Nantucket. So.
Yes,
wow.
Yes.
I don't know where I live because I live in the town with the people of color in it?
I've never been
Oh.
to Nantucket because I went to Islesboro in Maine, so I never. But I met. It's a lot of. Here's what's funny: the whole car thing. What made me chuckle when you said that, Megan, is in Islesboro now. There's only 600 people all year, but they did like a wife swap thing over this winter. Like we'd
What?
leave in September and come back. Well, not officially, but we just find out who left their spouse and checked up. I'm like, how do you all? There's not even that many people, but they have like different configurations of.
It's like hermit crabs.
Right.
Right? They all line up,
Exactly.
and everybody has to move into a new shell, except the guy at the end who gets stuck. You know.
So
You know, it's, like lesbians do this at Pride every year. So don't worry about it.
if I might get us like back to the Post-Roe.
Oh, sure.
Because as much as an entire show on like the sexual peculiarities of island culture would be really interesting.
That would be fascinating.
Like we'll book that.
Good point.
You know, I know that it's probably any day now that a federal judge in Texas will order the FDA to withdraw its approval of mifepristone. Is it mifepristone? Am I getting the drug right? I know science. And that is like one of the major drugs used in medical abortions. You know, and I'm wondering what do people need to be doing in the next 2 weeks to prepare for that to be happening? Like, do we need to be stockpiling drugs, or do we need to be?
Yeah.
Like I don't know what your group of people 20 years ago did to help each other.
Yeah, we definitely were stockpiling and giving it out to anybody that needed it. But you know, I think that we're still at a stage where people are really like the agencies that are dealing with reproductive options are still kind of fighting with like what's the best strategy. So there's a big divide in terms of, do we work around the system or do we challenge the system, right? And I see both options, but honestly, I'm pushing more working around the system so that there's still options available. So there's a lot of infighting right now of, should we be going to the doctor? If you go to the doctor perhaps and you say, you know, I've really been having a hard time with my periods, they're never regular. As opposed to, I think I'm pregnant and I've missed my period. And so playing around that way. And then there's a group of doctors that are willing to play back. And they're like, oh, so you would like something that will make your periods more regular, but will not take a pregnancy test. And as long as nobody says the word pregnancy, everybody's playing along. There's organizations in Mexico that are really pushing for women who have taken medical abortions to basically form like a Jane network, in which it's an underground type of thing. But the problem in America is most American individuals have not been taught that you should take care of your own medical choices, that you should provide your own medicine. And so to hear from your friend who took this pill and they can give you this pill so you can not be pregnant anymore, that involves a lot of fear for most people because we don't talk about it. And what you don't talk about is that increase of fear.
Right.
And two, the other thing is that, okay, so not only do I not necessarily trust this medication, but also is my friend going to report me to the police? So you've got two factors, and we haven't, as a nation that's trying to, we haven't figured out what's the best method, because we're still like, holy shit, Roe v. Wade has been overturned. But there's other options. We're just still stuck there because that's where everything rested upon. So when you say 2 weeks. I'm like, I don't fucking know.
Well, there's an element of both fighting the system and going around it. And I mean, I'm thinking about especially Black activists and organizers who never put their stock on white people protecting their bodily autonomy, because that's never been a thing here in this country. And so I think both and I mean, for as much, I mean, we've talked about this on the show before, that voting is harm reduction. And so we do need to, at the very least, keep those who are loudly and in writing and on media saying we will take your rights away because we need to be Christian. I mean, now they're just saying this, the politicians, the right wing in pulpits, like we don't, I mean, they want to put forth the Bible and basically make, have us, it is about control. And so the way here's what I will say that's different from the United States and 1930s Germany. That is an unknown. We are simply not a homogeneous nation, and Germany was. So we are not like, there are a lot more factions within factions. United States is full of ornery people, even within the right wing. So I'm curious. Yes, they're doing a lot of damage. There's a lot of shit going on, and there is a lot of organizing. They want to get rid of TikTok, not because they fucking give a shit about data mining, because there's a lot of organizing going on TikTok, and it's working. And so they want to shut down, because fucking Facebook data mines way more. So does Instagram. I mean, come on now, like that's all bullshit. Propaganda. Oh, that they're worried about the Chinese. I'm more worried about Mark Zuckerberg. Thank you very much. So give me a fucking break. So that's the unknown for me. I think yes, of course, there's a lot of parallels in terms of fascism and where we are in 1930s Germany. The biggest difference, and it is different, is how we are not a homogeneous nation at all. And so I'm curious about what that's going to look like. What's going to happen? I don't know. And maybe, is that going to make things, I mean, it's shitty. It's shit. And we need to combat the garbage that's going on. It is fucking scary. And there's a lot of organizing going on, and that hasn't stopped, and we can't let it stop. I mean, that's the thing that I think we need to remember. I wanted to lift up a real quick called Pleasure Activism. And it's the politics of feeling good. And it's not just about surviving, but it's thriving. And it talks about being sexually healthy, but enjoying sex, disability. There's chapters written by different people in different movement and organizers. Owning our sexuality is a huge revolutionary act. And that's, thank you, Megan, for being on and being here with us tonight, because that's what's scary is, I left a 30-year marriage, and now I'm living by myself. I'm a proud feral woman. I'm getting that t-shirt made, Megan. I'm going to send you one.
I would love that.
Right? It needs to happen. And and it is something that I was not at all conditioned to do in my entire life. That me living alone and doing whatever literally the fuck I want is not something that was conditioned into me at all. In fact, my mother's very clear. I'm going straight to hell when I die, which, mind you, heaven sounds boring. Let's be clear. So anyway, I'm going to shut up now.
Something that that Megan talked about just recently, talking about people, particularly people in the United States, are not accustomed to thinking about taking sort of control or agency over our own healthcare. Another thing we're not taught to do is act collectively.
Right.
Because of American individuality, and a lot of that is straight up European, European. There, I got all the letters in the right order. European colonization, which focused on the individual and not on the collective, right? And it is other cultures, and frankly, other communities that have been marginalized and targeted, who have learned how to work in collective to make progress and to seek and achieve liberation, are the ones that are most likely to survive long term there's a part of me that's like, it's actually sort of like the really independent, isolated white women that are going to get hurt the worst in this particular thing because they don't have the skills to act cooperatively, right? If they've always had privilege, they've never had to rely on anyone else. And people of color, communities of color, people who are queer or any of the LGBT, LMNOP, alphabet groups have learned that we must get together and support each other and act as a group, as a collective, to seek safety and freedom and liberation, and in this case, healthcare and medical care that does not put us at risk from the structures of power, right? Like Megan said, the groups of women who are doing the collective thing are gonna have a much better chance at this whole thing than the white suburban women behind the picture window who hardly knows her neighbors, or
Put
just
their money behind white men for their proximity to power, and those same white fucking men want to control them.
Sell them out.
So I mean,
yeah. And this is not so much I think it's a twofold thing. It's designed to stop all prevention of, there's a double negative. It's designed to force birth, right? As opposed to deny access to abortion or deny access to birth control. Like, that's a double negative. So it's designed to force birth of white women. Women, because white women have, with their access to privilege, been able to choose historically whether or not to be parents.
right.
And there's this whole bullshit, boogeyman of replacement theory that has the white man all fucking worked up and afraid that they're going to be replaced. And so what they're doing is they're trying to find a way to force white women to have more babies. Am I wrong in this?
No, I mean, I'm thinking about my partner's medical school experience, in which when he went to his residency, he specifically wanted a program in which he could learn about how to do termination. And so he found the place that he liked, that they said, yes, we allow our providers to learn how to do terminations, right? And so there's this whole bait and switch thing that went on, because once he got there, they were like, oh, well, you can take a leave of absence from your residency program and go to an abortion facility, but we don't actually allow terminations to take place on this campus because of the board. And the board doesn't like them. So he was told that he could learn how to do terminations at his residency program. And after he joined, they were like, JK, not actually on the physical campus, though. You can take a leave of absence and then come back to your residency.
Now he went to Brown Medical School, right?
Brown Medical School, but his residency was through Brown, and that was in Pawtucket. And so when a woman came in and she was spontaneously terminating, he did a pelvic exam because she went into the ER and the fetus was expelling itself. They still did not allow him. He had to work 4 hours to get protocol changed so that he could get her out of pain and remove the contents of the uterus.
That's horrific.
And he was the first person on the campus that was allowed to do that at Brown. So, like, even when we think that we've got allies, right, or we're told something, there's a bait and switch. And so that's something that I'm always concerned about. Like, okay, they say that they're going to do this, but when's the rug going to come out?
Yeah.
So it's
horrific.
Yeah.
I'd rather go back to talking about shark penises.
Yeah, I mean, I can do that all.
We have 3 minutes left. Let's talk about shark penises.
So for those who
all
are
over the
watching,
place.
who are like, what the hell just happened? We were talking about Megan's beachcombing activities and how she finds amazing things washed up on the shores of Nantucket.
Yep.
Including, and the first one I remember, one of our first conversations about your beachcombing things was, I found a shark penis.
Yep. It's yep.
I've seen it. It's in a jar, and it's a glorious, weird thing.
It really is, and it's on a rotating stand with a light underneath, so it shines up on the ceiling, which is perfect. And it's also on an autopsy table that I found at a yard sale here for $15. And
what? Oh my God, that's amazing. Okay, see, now Tanner is trying to keep us on task again. She's like, so what can people do?
Right.
What can people do? What can people do to sort of like be helpful in the world that we're in right now? Megan, any ideas?
yeah, I mean, as much as I cringe at most of the stuff that Andrea Dworkin came out with, author, I will say I really, really recommend, if you're into reading right-wing women, reading right-wing women, because it really taught me about compassion, because the whole premise is why do women turn on one another and prevent them access to birth control, blah, blah, blah. And basically it comes down to fear and hiding that fear. So we go back to the conversation that we were talking about earlier. It gave me a new way of looking at why does people come across as uptight and mean? Okay, they're probably scared. And then if you want to learn how to do your own terminations, if that is necessary, which more and more is looking like, a new view of a woman's body is a how-to guide on how to do terminations with the ball jar method. It's a book, yeah, from the 70s.
So it's like a ball jar that you get at the Way store, right?
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So those are things.
We also have two resources that we, Sister Song is a reproductive justice organizing group that is led by women of color. I actually joined them after what happened this summer. And then, Michael, you put one in the chat.
A link to the National Network of Abortion Funds, which is also led by women of color. They're not going to put giving people access to medical abortions on their website because that's going to be illegal in lots of places. But I said
Jessica Valente is also excellent on Instagram. She does a daily, like, here's what rights are being taken away on abortion and reproductive rights access, like state by state.
What did you say?
Jessica,
what did you say, Megan? Can you repeat that?
Oh, Jessica Valente has a great Instagram in which she posts daily updates of what states are poised to restrict what bodily autonomy. And she does it daily. So,
like, it just occurred to me now that we're one minute over. Like, I can only imagine what this is going to do to porn industries and like, oh my God, that's a whole other show. Anyway,
we can also book.
We can also book, which we can also book, right? You know what? Actually, we could totally. That would be fun. All right, so I want to thank Megan Andelloux for pinch hitting, and I am so grateful. It's been so great to see you, friend. Thank you for sharing your wisdom and your humor and your unique expertise in this area. Next week, do we have a show booked? Do we don't know yet? We will have something.
We're gonna have a great show, whatever it is.
It'll be whatever it is,
and wonderful.
Join us again. Like, all of the resources that you've heard about here today will be in our show notes, which you can find on our YouTube channel and probably Facebook somehow, some way through the magic. Thank you all, and we'll see you next week. All right.
Thank you all.
Have a great week, everybody. Thanks, Ann. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Megan. Thank you for joining us. Special thanks to those of you who give generously to this ministry. It is because of you that this ministry is possible. You can click the link in the description to give now, or visit clfuu.org/give for more information. We hope you will join us next week for another episode of The View.